privilege is mine to be speaking here. My name is Mohit Mukherjee. I'm originally from India, and I'm currently the founding director of the Center for Executive Education at the University for Peace. I was actually familiar with the University for Peace because I was working for an organization called the 𝗜𝗡𝗡𝗢𝗧 Initiative that was headquartered on the University for Peace's campus. And so I got to meet some of the students back in 2002. It was the University for Peace at that point had only 2 master's programs. And I could see the huge potential of this university. They have this amazing mission. It was established by the United Nations as the only institute that really was focusing on developing leaders who could change the world. And I got to know the students and the administration intimately. I saw the potential of this university. And I also realized that not everyone is in a place where they can take a year off to do a full-time master's program at the University for Peace, which was, in those days, the only way one could really engage with the programs. So I put together a proposal to the university to say, you know what, I think you guys need to start a center for executive education to offer short courses and more flexible formats. And they said, yes, Mohit, good idea, but who would run the center? And I said, I can do that. So it was, of course, I would say, I had an idea of how I could contribute to something that really had this potential. And I did also see that it needed an entrepreneurial, let's say, mindset to get started. They didn't have a budget for this. So I took on that entrepreneurial journey as an entrepreneur because they already, of course, had the infrastructure. Now, I'm from India. Both my parents are Indian. My family was living in Greece, in Athens, Greece, when I was born in the 70s. My dad worked for Air India, the airline. And then from Greece, he moved to Paris. So actually, my first schooling experience was in France. And so as a 5-year-old, I had only lived in Europe. And then the time came for my family to move to India. And at that age of 5 years old, I remember that contrast between, the streets of Paris and the streets of, I moved to a city called Calcutta back in those days, now called Kolkata. The contrast could not have been more. In Calcutta, even till today, when you drive through the city, you see street kids playing in the street. They seem to be happy, but they're really being denied what's a basic human right, the right to education. And so I had a lot of questions at that age. How is it possible that there's such different realities? But for me, a 5-year-old, the flight from Paris to Calcutta was an overnight flight. I slept on it. So to me, it was one small world, but with very, very different realities. And that kind of experience continued to happen because 3 years after living in Calcutta, we moved to Geneva, Switzerland. That was my dad's next posting. So again, the contrast was really, really very marked. And I think being exposed to these different socioeconomic realities growing up, I really felt that there was a global community, a global family. My best friend was this kid I met in Geneva Elementary School, and I didn't see the reason or I couldn't make sense of how these unnatural borders suddenly changed people's ability to, whether it was access healthcare or schooling. And so those were some of the deep experiences, personal experiences that led me to start something where the mission of the University for Peace and really the wider mission of the United Nations is we have to understand that our world has a common destiny, right? And these artificial political boundaries have not worked in our favor. When we look at issues like climate change, probably the biggest issue that is facing us as a threat in the 21st century, it doesn't know the political boundaries. Our planet works in ways that are systemic in nature. And so all of those, I don't think I could articulate really some of the, I would say, some of the courses that were going to evolve, but I definitely had a strong sense that the umbrella of the University for Peace, that vision, that mission statement, provided a perfect venue to offer the kinds of programs that I had thought about that bring people together and look at collaboration rather than competition. Yeah. I would go back to one of the failures that we had, and maybe we're getting better at this area, but we didn't sufficiently embrace a marketing mindset, right? I personally thought that if we deliver high quality programs, that should be enough. Word of mouth will take care of the rest. Partly that has been true, certainly in programs where, let's say, we've partnered with institutions, right? If we do a program for a university and they have a positive experience, we see them come back year after year because it's a decision maker at the university that is able to then next year say, we're going to send 20 more students. But however, for individuals who take, let's say, a positive leadership course, if they have a positive experience, it's very hard for them to necessarily then market the program for us. They might tell their friends. And so every time we offer these open enrollment workshops, we're trying to market it again. And I do think that social media has been somewhat helpful in that. I do think also that if we had done more earlier on, we could have built more robust systems. So right now, for example, our database has 11,000 people, and it's not necessarily the kind of customer relationships management system where we know that, oh, someone took a course 4 years ago, and if we target them with this course, then, so we're a little bit counting on word of mouth, counting on these institutional relationships. And finally, I think in the last 12 months, we've gotten some really professional social media help to help us scale. And again, I don't know if other social innovators who started alone might be able to empathize with this, but I always thought of myself as an educator, a content person, passionate about the change I want to create. And I thought of marketing as digital marketing is clicks, and but actually one supports the other. And marketing, to me now, I see it as empathy for the customer. Is how do you find these people who might want your course but will otherwise never learn about it? What are they reading? How do we get in front of them? So I think of marketing now with a different mindset. I think marketing is about empathy, not about trying to be a smart and glib kind of person who figures out a tricky way to make somebody click. That's a mindset that I've shed, and so I'm embracing it much more than I had in the past. When I'm talking to social innovators, I first try, who are interested in scaling, I first try to assess if what they're doing for some reason is very, very context specific. Yeah. And sometimes it is, sometimes it can be. And of course, the goal would be then to say, okay, you've done something that works in this particular context. What are the elements of your model that actually could be scaled beyond your particular context? So first is that question, is your model scalable? Do you understand your secret sauce that could be shared with others versus your secret sauce that only works in your particular context? So first, I do think there's that real understanding of the innovation. Then the second piece is, what is your goal? Because not every social innovator wants to be running a large kind of huge organization. So that dream, is it really about sharing your story? Is it about writing a case study? Is it about speaking at conferences? So it's a bit like throwing seeds and hoping that others pick up your idea and implement it in their context. So that would be one model of scaling, which is called the diffusion model. But others might feel that, no, I really do see what I've done or what my team has done as the potential to have many, many different branches around the world. And so that kind of scaling strategy requires more resources because you want to control the way that that organization grows. So it's literally like a tree growing many branches, but all the water and all the nutrients has to still come from the same tree, right? For the tree to continue to grow. So that's a different challenge. And I think the third model that I commonly see is a little bit more of the affiliate model, where there is some affiliation back to the original, and there's a lot of autonomy in how that model evolves in different contexts. So it's a, like franchising for businesses, the affiliate model for social enterprises. So I do find the scaling piece to both be a strategic decision on how to go about it, and it has to fit the vision of the social innovator or the team that started. And it's not one that I take on lightly in terms of giving advice to somebody. I'll just tell you very frankly and bluntly, our program model in the early days was purely funded through any courses we were able to sell. And so I did realize that with the kinds of courses we were offering, nonprofit leadership, we were part of this United Nations University for Peace and still are, there was also access to foundation grants. However, I felt that I had quite a bit of experience with grants through the 𝗕𝗓𝗧𝗓 initiative, because the majority of our funding was through grants. And I saw that as such an indirect way to do the work we wanted to do, that I did not go that route in the first few years at all. It was offer a course, offer different rates. We've always had scholarships, so people cross-subsidize each other. So we're able to have participants who pay full fee. We have participants who pay a portion of the full fee. And then again, usually we have some scholarships to people who otherwise wouldn't be in the course. And that mix pays for the course, pays for the facilitator, pays for our operations. So in a way, the business model is a fee for service model. Now, I think that is very, very limiting in terms of the many, many different business models and most institutions have. And so right now, fast forward, I'd say 15 years, we started into almost 15 years. We have many different business models, but our core is still contracts with either institutions, academic institutions. We have some multilateral agencies buying our services, our year-long leadership programs. And we still offer these, what we call open enrollment courses, and the B2B model, where we develop these longer-term relationships with universities or with companies now in Costa Rica. Those tend to be higher value contracts. They tend to recur. Those end up being much more predictable in terms of our income stream, and allow us also, therefore, to invest in growth. We don't yet have a subscription model, where we've been talking a little bit about, we're recording all our webinars now. So we have also been thinking of kind of this all access pass, where pay a monthly fee and you have access to all our content. We haven't quite implemented that yet. But again, perhaps going back in time, I think I'd have been more creative with our funding model rather than just try to sell people this course. And that was hard work. And hindsight gave us a good sense that model is somewhat limited. Yeah. Systemic change often starts just like that, right? It's you find something that is not fair, that's unjust, that shouldn't be, and you do something about it, and you realize there's more of it, and you start building an alliance, and you do more of it, and then maybe you have to change a law, and then and suddenly you've made systemic change. I might be describing a set of social entrepreneurs who don't really have that ability to project 10 years into the future and see how everything's going to come together, but really act on an injustice, on some shift in equilibrium that needs to happen at a local level. And as that need continues to magnify, it becomes systemic change. There is a piece where working on the right challenge is important, right? So that is a bit of that analytical piece of asking why. I care about this issue, but why is it happening? Why is it happening? I do think at some point one has to take an action, one has to try something responsibly and get some feedback. So that kind of process between thinking, learning, and acting is one that I would encourage any aspiring social innovator, social entrepreneur to give yourself permission to move between the two. If you don't take time to do the reading, to do the research, maybe some of the action was premature, maybe you could have acted more effectively, but at the same time, there's this phrase, analysis paralysis. At some point, you'll have asked enough questions and you do need to try something to be able to get some feedback. So again, just that answer embedded in it is that you will fail if you go that route, because part of it is you're not giving yourself that space to write your PhD dissertation before you act, right? You're saying, I'm going to do some research, I'm going to deepen my understanding, I'm going to try something that's going to give me feedback. And it's the advice that I've given myself. Even when I develop a new course, I think we're just launching a course for the first time. It's called Organizational Happiness. We're launching it in 3.5 weeks. Never taught that course before. I feel like it can be very impactful. There's such high levels of disengagement in organizations today. And I could say, who am I to offer this? I need to study more. But at some point I felt, okay, I have enough to be able to offer value to those participants. And then I'll learn from that process and offer a second version that's even better. But I think the first version is more than going to deliver value to those people who take the risk, right? Because if they ask for a testimonial, I don't have any. Nobody's taken that course before. So it's that kind of back and forth between doing the research and acting.